Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brandon, aka the BrandoCritic, and today I'm giving you my honest, no BS take on Street Gang, how we got to Sesame Street. So I'll be honest with you guys. I normally don't like reviewing documentaries because I find them hard to review, but easy to recommend. Now, what do I mean by that? Generally speaking, if you're a fan of the subject matter that the documentary is about, you will like the documentary. Now, I understand that there are exceptions to this rule because, I don't like the NBA, but I loved The Last Dance, right? The Michael Jordan documentary. I'm a huge fan of movies, but the last blockbuster was a little underwhelming. And in my eyes, the best documentaries are the ones that make you take interest in something that you had no clue about before. And I'll be honest with you guys, I haven't really pinpointed the right reasons why that happens in certain documentaries. I can only speak from my own personal experience. So this review will be a little bit different. I'm gonna give you the rating right away. I'm giving this movie a 4 out of 5 because I really enjoyed it. I found it really fascinating, even though I don't really remember Sesame Street. I remember watching it when I was a toddler, and I haven't gone back on it since, but I know, of course, Oscar the Grouch, Big Bird, Elmo, Bert and Ernie. I know all these characters, but I'm not a Sesame Street expert, so to speak. So if you're a fan of Sesame Street and you hold it really close to your heart, then this documentary is definitely for you. But if you're like me and you know about Sesame Street, but you're not really well versed in the Sesame Street universe, so to speak, then here are the reasons why I liked it. And I'll tell you guys right now that the things that I look for in a documentary are ideas that it brings up and things that you can think about afterwards. So when watching this documentary, I actually wrote down some things that they said in the documentary that I found really profound, or something that really made me sit and think and wonder, and it really was impactful. And the first thing was that when making Sesame Street, the producers and the writers were talking about how, what if we made a show for children that allowed the TV to love you as opposed to sell to you? And that line really hit me because I really do feel like modern Hollywood really panders to its audience. It talks down to us. It treats us like we're dumb. Whereas Sesame Street, yes, it was a movie for children, but they never talked down to the children. And they showed some of the older children's shows from like the 50s and 60s where it's like, ask your mommy and daddy to buy you Tootsie Rolls. And it's just complete corporate pandering, just, hey kids, buy this crap. But what if we could use that platform to really educate and really grow our children? And, for my generation, of course, I'm born in 95, so definitely after this show was really popular. But yeah, I grew up on television. And I can only imagine that was the case for kids growing up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. My parents were born in the early 60s. They watched Sesame Street, so this is definitely a movie for them. And I just really love that line. The TV that loves you, as opposed to trying to sell you stuff. Another thing that this show brings up is the political temperature, if you will, during that time. And of course, right now, there is definitely a political temperature rising in the world, of course. More in America, but I digress. And bringing up the political landscape at the time where this show was coming out, it really pinpoints it in a time in history, like we understand what was going on at the time, but yet it also makes it relevant today. People are able to attach their world to the world that this show was made in. So it's an interesting way to keep it dated yet relevant at the same time, to bring up the political aspect. And I mean, as a child, I never really even thought about that. I never thought about, isn't it crazy to see a bunch of, African-American people on screen, or a Latino guy just being a Latino guy. And the actor, I forget his name, but he said it was so nice for him just to play a person, just a normal person living in New York City, living on Sesame Street. But, when he was doing acting in his early 20s, he was always just gang member or violent person, or, he never really got any really big roles where he was able to really show his heritage, show his culture, or just be himself. So I definitely understand why this show was very influential in bringing people together of all different backgrounds, races, all that stuff. We're all living in this one street with monsters and everything, and it's just a pleasant place. And having it take place in the inner cities of New York and calling it Sesame Street. Watching this documentary, it's genius. Obviously, they're trying to target, inner city children. So let's make city streets the location for the show. There's a ton of stuff happening right there. It's very energetic. It's so full of life. And Sesame Street is a street where anything can happen. Open sesame. As a kid, of course, you don't really think about these things. You don't think about why things are called what they're called. But I really think from a marketing standpoint, obviously it worked, and the more you look into it, I really think it was genius. And I loved them showing you how they got to that conclusion, as well as they showed the writers and the producers studying children's attention span. That's like some next level research. They go into a classroom with a bunch of kindergartners and they're watching the screen, and of course when a kid is bored, you know, they're gonna look at the projector, they're gonna like look around, they're gonna start fidgeting. And whenever a kid looked away, they would say, okay, well, what causes the children to look away? What causes the children to keep looking? It's the commercial type of filmmaking, but for educational purposes. I found that just so fascinating. And what I also love is that Sesame Street, while being a children's show, they talk about it like it's an adult show. Meaning that they talk about like the producer's depression, and they talk about how he could get angry on set, and they could talk about, you know, the writers and all their different drama going on behind the scenes. And there's a couple times where they swear in this documentary, right? So it's not a documentary that really panders down to children either. They say this is really how it was. Like when Big Bird, he was supposed to be like this big doofus, always hitting his head on things. And one guy's like, what is this shit? And I'm like, that's great, because they're talking about a show that's for children, but it's adults speaking. Then they talk about the reason why they had Big Bird in there and Oscar the Grouch, right? Like not everyone's gonna be nice. And I loved that someone said, you know, Oscar the Grouch was there to show children that you can get along with someone that, generally speaking, you don't like, and someone that has a different opinion than you. And I hate the term, this is the film we need right now. I think some people need to learn something from Oscar the Grouch. And last thing I'll say that this show brings up is the Kermit song, It's Not Easy Being Green. You know, I know the song, but I never really thought about it in terms of race or in terms of just your own personal struggles, because everyone has their own insecurities, even Kermit the Frog. Just being green, you know, he talks about how he wishes he was red or blue or yellow, but then he's like, well, green actually does have some really great things. So it's all about your mindset. Again, this show, I'm starting to think about it now, is a lot more profound than I remember, of course, being a child and all. And of course, they bring up the Big Bird death sequence, you know, when Mr. Hooper died in real life, the actor. You know, again, not pandering to children, not saying, oh, he just left. Like, no, there's an episode where the actors talk about, yes, he died, and when you die, you don't come back, right? Like, they're telling the truth to the kids. And that's one thing that I really got out of this documentary, was that how Sesame Street was really a show telling you the truth. It wasn't trying to sell you crap. It wasn't trying to just be mindless entertainment. It was trying to teach you how to be a smarter, better human being. And that's what I think that this show does really, really well. It's informative. They have a ton of interviews, a ton of behind the scenes footage, which is always nice. It's always really fast paced and you get a lot of information. You're never bored. It's never dull. It's never bland. It's just a well-made documentary. So if you guys like this documentary, definitely let me know down in the comment section down below. And what is your favorite Sesame Street character? I'm a pretty big guy, so I gotta go with Big Bird. And my dad's name is Ernie, so I gotta give some love to Ernie too. But I'd love to know your guys' opinion. And if you guys are new here and you wanna see more videos just like this, then definitely hit like and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.